are these people?
So I brought this. A lot of stuff has been happening about immigration. Again, I felt like we had all these arguments like years ago, but apparently we got to go through it once more. So this is from Arturo Dominguez, right? He writes, "The making of a criminal migrant. One of the greatest political deceptions in modern history has come to fruition, and the White House is struggling to meet the moment it created with its immigration culture war." And I just thought it had some really interesting points that we're going to get into. So, the Trump admin pulled off one of the greatest deceptions in modern history, second only to the trickery that led us into the war on terror, which they're fucking doing again, and the passage of the ensuing Patriot Act. I'm sure we're going to get the second version of that any day now, by convincing people that so-called criminal migrants need to be deported. The Trump camp and Republicans successfully weaponized a handful of crimes and villainized entire populations of various Latino groups. The Latino-phobic nature of it all surfaced quickly. Before you knew it, the country was parroting bogus anti-immigrant ideas, criminalizing non-citizens. Even some liberal pundits fell for it and agreed that yes, criminals should be deported, but no one defined what a criminal migrant was. We all knew there was no migrant crime wave, that millions of migrants weren't pouring across the border, and certainly that there was no invasion happening. It was all bluster. We all know immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens, and yet people fall for the migrants are criminals shtick every time. Suddenly, anyone who was previously referred to as undocumented was being, quote, equated with illegal, and people began to push the narrative that if a migrant crossed the border between points of entry, which many assume is illegal, they should be deported. However, it's not that simple, because most of them are legal immigrants. Anytime, any issue becomes oversimplified, it remains largely misunderstood. Crossing the border anywhere to claim asylum is legal. So, Here's U.S. Code 1158 on asylum. Any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after having been interdicted in international or United States waters. That's an important bit. Irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section, or where applicable, section 1225B. Collin, I'm betting you're old enough to remember the wet foot, dry foot situation. You heard of this? It's a very Florida specific thing, but
I think yeah.
Cubans, if they make it, they get dry feet, they land on land. Guess what? You got asylum, baby. You made it.
Right.
If that foot's still wet, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, if they catch you on the boat, you're getting sent back. So that's partially how this works, And I think they're somewhat perfectly fine with Republican Cubans coming over, especially. But to continue, do people file bogus asylum claims? Sure, but rarely. However, the vast majority of so-called undocumented immigrants are, in fact, documented and legal if they have pending paperwork or a pending case. Meanwhile, millions are here legally with no pathway to citizenship. Their spouses, mothers, fathers, and children, and based on the Trump admin's recent actions, now potential targets for deportation via some dubious criminalization to justify it. Despite the attempts at bypassing due process, citizens being rounded up in immigration and customs enforcement actions due to much chaos created by the influx of agents from various federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, the Trump admin set a new quota, demanding 3,000 arrests per day to meet their vision of what mass deportation should look like, to use inhumanity as a deterrent as much as possible, no matter the harm caused. So here's some of that inhumanity, right? Jack's Page weighing in. We've accepted as a nation that these masked agents can just grab people and take them away without showing ID or warrants. They are racially profiling people and physically assaulting them. Who are these ICE agents?
Hey, yo, what the fuck? Look.
Put in the car.
Hey, these are legal citizens, you fucking pieces of shit. Fuck you. car. I'm sorry.
Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Look.
Put him in the car.
Hey, I got the
So,
shit over here.
again,
Don't worry about it.
Back up over here.
masked,
Fuck, dude, what the fuck?
fucking
What kind of
black
shit? They're
booted
putting hands
thugs.
on him, dude, and you're putting. That's bullshit. That's
Real fucking slimy. Yep. So this shouldn't even be controversial. ICE should obviously have to wear a uniform and no masks. This shouldn't be controversial. So yeah, agreed. Thoughts so far, K-Bear?
I mean, yeah, I think I'll probably share a little bit more on this later, but I actually need to change my mouse. There's a lot of rhetoric online in the assumption that immigrants are a problem. And especially, and what's really triggering me is that Black people are saying this among other Black people that immigrants are a problem. And because, and you can fill in the blank. And the thing is, they never go into any specifics really as to the problem, but it's like, oh, they're bad. But I think it's kind of the idea of like, and I think this is what the Republican Party is trying to exploit. It's the idea like, oh, they're drug dealers, they cause crime and whatever else. Well, as you said, given the article, and we've talked about that here, they're not as likely to cause crime because they don't want to get into trouble. So but that narrative is still being persisted in the media in terms of
Yeah.
they're a problem. And the issues that people, and I feel like I say this way too much, and given that I'm an immigrant myself, I definitely feel for this, especially for me, because, I came to this country, just to be completely transparent, and I hate saying this way, but it's true, as a result of abuse within my family. And I left the UK because I felt at the time when I was a child, it was either life or death, literally at that time.
Right.
So people are not leaving their countries. And I remember feeling at 11, I didn't want to leave, but I felt at that point I didn't have a choice. This was me as a child thinking that. So can you imagine an adult, especially a family with children, who might be in a war-torn country, and a lot of that might be due to our policies or the West policies that are affecting those countries.
Right.
Like people are not going into the nitty-gritty. And I think honestly, if more people spoke to immigrants and hear their stories, that people may feel a different way. But it's like it's just the immediate assumption of, oh, they're bad, they're criminals, they're this, they're that, they cause trouble, they need to get out. They take our jobs, they need to get out, but never questioning as to why they're here. And
they're
again,
lazy, they need to get out.
Is
just the immigrant paradox,
Right. But again, a lot of these issues are stemming from the corporate class and what we are doing in these countries that are forcing many of them to leave.
Yeah.
And again, that's maybe just one aspect of immigration. But then the other thing is, you're not making it easy for people to get citizenship if they want to. So I forgot, I'm not sure how to, and maybe this is something you can check maybe quickly online, but I remember when I became a citizen, it cost me, this was a little over 10 years ago now, because I just renewed my, so it's been 10 years. I think it was around, I want to say $1,000, probably a little less, to go through that process.
Right.
And I had to take time off work to, go to the embassy to talk to, like for the tasks that you have to take. Like, and like, fortunately, I speak English, so it wouldn't have been a big deal. But what if English is not your first language? Like, you probably have to pay for English lessons in order to speak the language, so that when you take the exam in order to get your citizenship, you are actually competent enough for people to be like, okay, you can actually live here. So it's not cheap. And that's what people also need to realize, is that it's not cheap and we're not getting paid. So what are people supposed to do? And these are the problems that I don't think is necessarily being discussed in government. Like, um, I think there was a viral clip of, I think, Arnold Schwarzenegger going on The View, and he basically called out those women gladly, which I'm no fan of
Sure.
Schwarzenegger, but I think he was very right in terms of, look, like, I think essentially he said, like, you can't demonize immigrants, like, and he was speaking for himself, like, I did what I needed to do. I worked hard to be here. And immigrants generally do work hard in order to remain here and to stay here and to contribute to this country in a way that I feel like I contribute to this country. So, they shouldn't be demonized, but we need to make things easier in terms of how to go through the process of becoming citizens, and making this a little bit more clear as to, if you're seeking asylum, what's the means to do that? If you're trying to get citizenship, what's the means to do that? It's just so nebulous, this whole process, that, like, but then now in the midst of war, it's like so chaotic, and people are trying to figure out how to do things, and it's easy for people to be like, get out of here, versus what are the things that people should be doing legally in order for them to remain here and stay here if they choose to.
Yep. I always found it funny that, like, it's always like Latino immigrants too. Like, they don't worry about any other culture's immigrants. We just gotta build that wall, build that wall. Like, there's no, let alone the fact that, like, the amount of fucking immigration that happens on foot is like chump change compared to, like, people flying in from other countries on work visas and then staying here,
Right.
like, or marriage visas or whatever. Like, that's way more of that happening than, like, I just always find it funny. But just to continue, to achieve those numbers, and since the Trump admin failed to live up to the migrant crime wave that included gangs taking over apartment complexes and eating your pets, it has now create as many deportable non-citizens as possible by issuing notice to appear orders. When non-citizens show up in court, the DOJ drops their cases, highlighting one of the many policies making hundreds of thousands of migrants vulnerable at a time. I don't know if you knew that, but the administration has the DOJ dropping non-citizen cases because they offer protections against deportations. By doing so, migrants can immediately be taken into custody by ICE agents in waiting and placed in expedited removal proceedings. It has also successfully begun removing temporary protected status for thousands of Afghans and a total of 850,000 Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, as decided in separate cases. As the admin continues to violate the human rights of civilians, both citizens and not, it is escalating its efforts despite its failure of its propaganda machine. Citizens are pushing back against militarized federal police, supported by their local cops, roaming around in armored vehicles, carrying military-style weapons in their communities to take migrants who are not a threat into custody. No one wants the appearance of a war zone in their neighborhood. But with the Trump admin deploying Marines and National Guard in Los Angeles and still seeking over 20,000 National Guard soldiers to assist with its deportation efforts, we're inching closer to seeing the military on our streets everywhere, even if just in a support role, as the admin suggests. Meanwhile, White House officials are again equating everything from domestic terrorism to Trump's odor, probably with immigration. Last week, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services announced that it would begin targeting visa overstays after the recent attack in Boulder, Colorado. The Department of Homeland Security even took Mohammed Solima's family into custody. There is no established connection, allegations, or justification for the family to be disrupted any further after the tragedy, but for the Trump admin, it's about being as cruel as possible. ICE detainee Hayam Salah al-Sad Ahmed el-Gamal, Salami's wife, Habiba Mohammed Sabra Farag Soliman's 18-year-old daughter and 2 minor sons and 2 minor daughters, and it's processing them for removal. DHS suggests that all are citizens of Egypt, while Soliman and his family's visas had expired, as reported by far-right goons. He applied for asylum for the entire family 5 months before the expiration, according to DHS. So he was definitely trying to get that handled, sounds like. And I'm sure government, bureaucracy was expediting that. So DHS and ICE have taken the family of successful Boulder, Colorado terrorist and illegal alien Mohammed Soliman into ICE custody. This terrorist will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, said Christy Nome. We are investigating to what extent his family knew about this heinous attack, if they had knowledge of it, or if they provided support to it. I am continuing to pray for the victims of this attack and their families. Justice will be served. A federal judge blocked the immediate deportation of the family. Lawyers representing the family pulled no punches in denouncing the detention of the family after the judge's decision, as they should. Punishing individuals, including children as young as 4 years old, for the purported actions of their relatives is a feature of medieval justice systems or police state dictatorships, not democracies, not that we live in one, said lead counsel for El Gamal and her children, Eric Lee, via a statement. The Trump admin's vindictive attack on the young family echoes the methods of Nazi Germany, where authorities used kin punishment. Sippenhaft